Welcome to our channel. Today is a beautiful literary story and facts. The Grammar of Steam. Lily and the Iron Language of the World. The year was 1830 when Lily Whitcomb first heard the earth scream. She was 7 years old, standing on a frostbitten hill in County Durham, England, clutching a slate and a stolen piece of chalk. Below her, the Stockton and Darlington Railway cut through the moors like a wound. A plume of black smoke rose, then a shriek that split the morning. Her father, a colliery surveyor, covered her ears too late. "It's George Stephenson's locomotion number 1, he said, his breath fogging. 30 tons of iron and fire, child. And it's alive." Lily did not see a machine. She saw a question. How could fire become motion? How could iron rails, laid by men with calloused hands, carry a mountain of coal at 15 miles an hour? That night she drew circles and arrows on her slate, boiler piston wheel. Her father laughed, but he saved the slate. By 1842, Lily was 19 and a calculating girl at the office of the Newcastle and Carlisle Railway. Women were not engineers. Women were not surveyors. But Lily could reduce a theodolite reading faster than any man, and she understood gradients the way other girls understood embroidery. Her notebooks, bound in oilcloth, were full of numbers and sketches. She called them the Iron Atlas. Chapter 1, The Language of Gauge, 1845. Lily's first adventure began with a war. Not a war of guns, but of gauge. Isambard Kingdom Brunel, the great engineer of the Great Western Railway, had laid his track 7 feet and 1/4 inch wide. He called it broad gauge. He argued that a wider base meant less oscillation, higher speed, and greater comfort. The carriages could be wider, the center of gravity lower. In 1838 his Iron Duke class locomotives were already touching 60 miles per hour, a speed that seemed like witchcraft. But most of Britain ran on the narrow gauge of 4 feet 8.5 inches. It was the gauge Stephenson used on the Stockton and Darlington, inherited from the coal wagonways of the northern mines. It was the width of 2 horses, or so the legend went. By 1845, the 2 systems met at Gloucester, and the result was chaos. Cargo had to be unloaded from one train and reloaded onto another. Passengers missed connections. The economy bled time. Parliament summoned the Gauge Commission. Lily, because she was fluent in French and had translated several papers from the École des Ponts et Chaussées, was hired as a clerk. She was not supposed to speak. She was supposed to copy. On the 3rd day, Brunel stood before the commission. He was short, stout, and smoked cigars while he spoke. "Gentlemen," he said, "the narrow gauge is a relic. It is a coal cart. My broad gauge is the future. The rolling friction of a train decreases as the wheel diameter increases. With 7-foot gauge I can use 7-foot driving wheels. The piston speed remains moderate while the ground speed becomes magnificent. Physics, not opinion." Lily's pencil stopped. She had been calculating. Rolling resistance in a rail wheel is roughly proportional to the weight on it divided by the wheel diameter, plus a constant for axle friction. Larger wheels, lower angular velocity for the same linear speed, less wear on the rails. Brunel was right about the physics. But he was wrong about the world. That night she wrote in the Iron Atlas. Gauge is not a dimension. It is a treaty. Every bridge, every tunnel, every station platform in the north is cut for 4 feet 8.5 inches. To change gauge is to rebuild England. The cost is not in iron. It is in time. And time is the one element a locomotive cannot compress. She slipped the note into the commission's findings. No one knew who wrote it. In 1846, Parliament passed the Gauge Act. All new railways in Great Britain would be built to 4 feet 8.5 inches except the Great Western. It was a compromise, and compromises are how empires survive. Lily had learned her first law of technology: the best system does not win. The entrenched system wins. Chapter 2: The Heat of Expansion, 1851. In 1851, Lily boarded a ship to Philadelphia. The United States had no Gauge Act. It had 50 gauges. In the South, 5 feet. In Erie, 6 feet. In the North, 4 feet 8.5 inches was spreading like a rumor. Lily was sent by Robert Stephenson and Company to study American boiler practice. American engineers were doing dangerous things. She met Matthias Baldwin at his locomotive works on Broad Street. He was a jeweler turned machinist, with ink under his nails. "Miss Whitcomb," he said, "your English boilers are built like cathedrals. Ours are built like kettles. We run at 120 psi. You run at 50. Why?" Lily examined his boiler. It was a wagon-top design, with a huge steam dome and a shallow firebox. The stays were wrought iron, screwed and riveted. "Because ours do not explode," she said. Baldwin grinned. "Neither do ours. Most of the time." He explained. American wood was cheap. Labor was expensive. American rails were light, 40 pounds per yard, laid on untreated ties that sank into mud. An English locomotive, with its rigid frame and low center of gravity, would derail on American track. So American locomotives had a four-wheel swiveling truck at the front, the bogie, invented by John B. Jarvis in 1832. It let the engine hunt for the rail. They also used a bar frame instead of a plate frame, because it was easier to repair with a forge in a shed. But the real difference was steam. Saturated steam at 50 psi contains 1,180 BTU per pound. At 120 psi, it contains 1,218 BTU. The difference seems small. But the work a steam engine can do is proportional to the pressure drop across the piston. Double the boiler pressure, and you roughly double the tractive effort for the same cylinder size. American engineers accepted the risk because the payoff was enormous: smaller, lighter engines that could haul more on bad track. Lily spent 6 months riding footplates. She learned to read the fire. A coal fire needs air from below. Too little draft and you make smoke and carbon monoxide. Too much and you throw cold air into the firebox and waste heat. The secret was the exhaust blast pipe. In 1801, Richard Trevithick discovered that directing the exhausted steam from the cylinders up the chimney created a vacuum that pulled air through the fire. The harder the engine worked, the stronger the draft. It was a perfect feedback loop. She wrote the equation in her atlas. Draft proportionality, area of blast pipe, area of chimney, times mass flow of steam. Too small a blast pipe and you choked the cylinders. Too large and you lost draft. The art was in the compromise. In Altoona, Pennsylvania, she saw the horseshoe curve being carved into the Alleghenies. For tracks 2,375 feet long, gaining 122 feet with a grade of 1.8%. Here, physics became visible. A 100-ton train on a 1.8% grade needs 1.8 tons of force just to hold it, before friction. The Pennsylvania Railroad used Class H locomotives with 44-inch drivers and 180 psi boilers. They needed them. Lily calculated that each additional pound of boiler pressure saved 3 pounds of locomotive weight, because the cylinders could be smaller. She mailed her notes to England. America is not building railways. It is building a continent. It chooses speed over safety, lightness over permanence, and it is winning. Chapter 3: Bessemer and the Age of Steel, 1865. Lilly returned to England in 1860. She was 37, unmarried, and considered eccentric. She wore boots and carried a slide rule. She took a position at the crew works of the London and North Western Railway. There she met the second great shift, steel. Until 1856, rails were wrought iron. Wrought iron is fibrous, tough, but soft. Under a 15-ton locomotive, the rail head deformed. It laminated, forming slivers that broke off. Every rail had to be replaced every 5 to 10 years. The cost was ruinous. In 1856, Henry Bessemer announced his process. Blow cold air through molten pig iron. The oxygen burns out the carbon and silicon. The temperature rises instead of falls. In 20 minutes, 5 tons of steel for the price of wrought iron. The railway engineers did not believe him. Steel was known to be brittle. The first Bessemer rails shattered in winter. But in 1862, Robert Forrester Mushat added Spiegeleisen, an alloy of iron, manganese, and carbon, after the blow. The manganese removed the oxygen, the carbon restored toughness. Steel rails were born. Lilly was sent to Cammell Laird in Sheffield to inspect the first 100-ton order. She brought a microscope. She polished a section of rail and etched it with nitric acid. Under magnification, wrought iron looked like wood, with long slag fibers. Bessemer steel looked like fine sand, a crystalline structure without weakness. She put a rail in a drop test. A 2,000-pound weight fell 15 feet. The wrought iron rail bent 6 inches and stayed bent. The steel rail bent 2 inches and sprang back. She measured the modulus of elasticity, 30 million psi for steel versus 28 million for wrought iron. Not a huge difference. But the yield strength was 50,000 psi for steel versus 25,000 for iron. That meant steel could take twice the load before permanent deformation. The result changed the world. Locomotives grew from 30 tons to 80 tons in a decade. Wheel loads went from 5 tons to 12 tons. Trains went from 20 wagons to 50. The cost per ton-mile fell by 60%. The age of the limited, delicate English engine was over. The age of power began. Lilly wrote, "We have replaced the bone of the railway with marrow. The track is no longer a consumable. It is a permanent way. And with permanence comes empire." Chapter 4: The Compound and the Continent, 1880. In 1876, Lilly was in Paris. The chemin de fer du Nord had a problem. Coal was expensive in France. The company needed efficiency. Anatole Mallet had an idea: the compound locomotive. In a simple engine, steam enters the cylinder at boiler pressure, pushes the piston, and exhausts at 5 to 10 psi. Most of the energy is thrown away. In a compound, the steam exhausts from a small high-pressure cylinder into a large low-pressure cylinder. It expands twice. The temperature drop is staged, so less heat is lost to the cylinder walls. Lilly studied the equations. The theoretical efficiency of a steam engine is the Rankine efficiency. Eta equals 1, T underscore colds T underscore hot. For 180 psi saturated steam, T underscore hot is 380 degrees Fahrenheit. If you exhaust at atmospheric pressure, T underscore cold is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Efficiency is 1,672, 840 equals 20%. If you compound and drop to 5 psi, T underscore cold is 162 degrees Fahrenheit. Efficiency rises to 27%. That 7% was a fortune in coal. Mallet's first compound, a 0-for-2 with a high-pressure cylinder between the frames and a low-pressure cylinder outside, saved 18% on fuel. By 1880, compounds were everywhere in Europe. America rejected them. American coal was cheap, and compounds were complicated to maintain. Lilly saw the divergence. Europe optimized for thermodynamics. America optimized for maintenance hours. Two philosophies of civilization. She rode the Orient Express in 1883, from Paris to Constantinople. The train used Wagner bogies, air brakes from Westinghouse, and a compound for 40. It crossed the Alps through the 9-mile Mont-Cenis tunnel, ventilated by steam-powered fans. At each border the locomotive changed, because national voltages, couplings, and signaling were all different. Europe was a machine with incompatible parts. In her atlas she drew a map of Europe with rail lines in red and gauges in blue. The continent is united by steel but divided by standards. The next war will be fought on timetables. 30 years later, she was right. Chapter 5, The Electric and the End of Fire, 1895. Lilly was 72 when she saw her first electric locomotive. It was 1895, at the Baltimore and Ohio's Baltimore Belt Line. A tunnel under the city had filled with smoke from steam engines. The solution was electric. The physics was new. A series-wound DC motor has maximum torque at 0 RPM. Perfect for starting a train. The voltage drop in the third rail was immense, so they used 675 volts DC. The locomotive had no boiler, no fire, no reciprocating parts. It was silent. Lilly touched the motor casing. It was warm, not hot. She thought of locomotion number 1. Fire to piston to wheel. Now it was wire to magnet to wheel. The chain was shorter. She calculated the energy density. Coal has 24 mJ a kilogram. At 6% efficiency, a steam locomotive delivers 1.4 mJ per kilogram of coal. A power station in 1895 was 15% efficient. Transmission loss was 10%. The motor was 90% efficient. Delivered energy, 24 times 0.15 times 0.90 times 0.90 is equal to 2.9 mJ per kilogram of coal. Electric was twice as efficient, even before you counted the lack of water stops. But the infrastructure cost was immense. Catenary, substations, copper. Steam would rule for another 50 years. Lilly died in 1903, in a cottage in York. Her iron atlas was donated to the National Railway Museum. On the last page she had written, "The railway is not iron. It is agreement. Agreement on gauge, on time, on pressure, on voltage. The locomotive is only the voice. The track is the language. Civilization is the grammar. I have spent my life listening to the syntax of steam. The next girl will listen to electrons. But the question will be the same: how do we move the world, and what do we break when we do?" In 2025, the 4 feet 8.5 inches gauge she fought to preserve still carries 90% of the world's rail traffic. The blast pipe she studied still drafts the fire in heritage steam engines. The Bessemer steel she tested is in every rail. And somewhere, a girl named Lilly is taking apart an electric motor, asking how magnets become motion. And the Iron Road continues.